Welcome to my Budget Jake channel, where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today I had a look at, well, technically Runick's, but I've gone back to, I don't want to say fan favorite because I don't think many people care about Tindangles, but some people really care about Tindangles, and this is for you. I've come up with a version that does Tindangle Runick stuff. Because I was asking myself, so since Runick is very expensive, it's very hard to create a budget deck with it, because you technically need a whole skeleton of a deck, like a whole archetype or even more, that doesn't have any super rares or ultra rares basically, because otherwise you could not reach the kind of limit that I set myself, like trying to do like maximum of 5 ultra rares, maximum of like 9 super rares. That's kind of where I'm going for usually. And with this one, I feel like, I don't want to say I nailed it because it's still a Tindangle deck, but it's quite a fun Tindangle deck. In total, we try to either actually mill out our opponent, can help, can work, can do stuff, or we like to annoy them as long as they, till they either surrender or till you actually can push for game, because there's some ways that you can. Honorable mentions though first, because obviously this deck isn't the optimal deck, because, you know, it's not ratio-wise optimal, because we're lacking certain cards if we want to stick to the budget limitations. Cards that you could be playing and possibly should be playing, possibly one Hound at 1, possibly even like a Subterra Behemoth, because this card does a lot. You can play Shaddoll Construct with the L Construct, because then you can do quite some combos, because this card takes flip monsters. This is a Shaddoll light monster, and then from there onwards, since you do run Shaddoll monsters, you can do stuff as well, but obviously that's not enough to actually include this into this budget version. Nightmares are good, Unicorn, Phoenix, technically even Cerberus, but I think Unicorn and Phoenix are usually the better ones. Access Decode Talker to finish easier after you've annoyed and stalled your opponent. Stuff like Tindangle Acute Cerberus, of course, so you can use your Tindangle Trap card actually, and this card makes it even easier to OTK in time to time. Sadly, you need 3 Tindangle monsters, and you can't just do it with any monsters, but usually you'll be fine. The problem with linked monsters in this deck is, usually if you then try and play more of a ratio with the Runick fusion monster, for example, they can only be summoned into the extra monster zone. So if you have a link monster up, that's a bit annoying, but you can use them as link material and you can summon in the same turn, so it's usually fine, but you can't attack in the same turn, so it's a bit iffy with certain link decks, but it still works out most of the time. So yeah, you can technically, I felt like in this specific version you wanted to play more of the little wolf guy, because this card is, it's very good in a stall setup, and if your opponent gets rid of your field spell, you do want to get it back, because otherwise your Runick cards are just meh. They're not really great anymore because you don't get the value off of the field spell. So you do want more ways to get your field spell back. You technically could play a second one, but I really don't think that is necessary, even though it would be kind of funny, because then you get a second discard from your Hugin, and that can be quite fun, because this deck actually does a lot with discards. What comes to mind, Harpy's Feather Duster if you're playing against back row decks. This deck somewhat struggles with back row removal, because there's no good rank 4 that actually does stuff against back row that isn't Tornado Dragon, so like a low rarity kind of stuff is a bit bad, but you could obviously play Tornado Dragon. You can play stuff like Pop Prosperity, because you don't OTK in the first turns anyway, and if you then in a later stage draw into this card, just don't use it. It's quite easy actually. Called by the Grave is obviously a nice card with lots of graveyard effects being around anyway, and also because of hand traps, and hand traps are really sucky in this deck, like really sucky. You could also play like as a rank 6, just want to mention it, I decided to go for the Shogi, but you can play any kind of thing, and this card technically works because Tindangle Intruder is a Fiend monster, and then you can go into Wave Hiking Caesar, because you need 2 level 6 Fiend monsters. Fun. Let's continue. Tindangle Jhrelth. Yeah, that mouthful one. This card is in general very good. Discard stuff to the graveyard to summon itself, and in defense positions, face down obviously, and can then bin 1 Tindangle card from your deck to the graveyard, which is quite nice. There's like obviously some combos with Dholes, Intruder, and so on. Technically you kind of want to be playing a triple Dholes, but obviously super rares and stuff, and the deck space gets kind of tight, and you don't really want to be cutting down on your trap lineup, because your trap lineup is kind of what makes this deck, well, good. Because that makes you be more stally, more survive more stuff, and you can actually easily recover from field wipes. So Stuff like Torrential Tribute and Needle Sealing do not much towards your own lineup, but what is good about the discard effect actually is that you can discard Runick cards that you don't have any usage for, or just already have used if you draw into doubles, and then once you use another Runick card and have the fuel spell up, then you can shuffle them into the deck and get like a better draw. So like technically you gain advantage, or at least you don't lose advantage off of the discard, which is quite nice. So this actually does a lot. We run one dragon because this card is spell trap removal, which can be very helpful, and you can send it to the graveyard directly with this one, which is quite nice. If you have it in hand, it's a bit iffy. You'd have to set it and do stuff. You can't really get the effect then because you do not play the whole combo with constructs, so you can't use it to fusion summon, but that is still fine. You can set it, the effect isn't too bad. It's also like removal at least, so I feel like this card isn't too bad. Plus it's a level 4, so you can go into some rank 4s, and with it being dark you technically could go into Nightmare, which is quite fun because you could use Runick Fangs and normal summon this card and then just have like disruption already that will annoy your opponent, which is a bit problematic with Needle Sealing, but let's not talk about that. You have Torrential Tribute as well. We run Spirit of the Fallen. Technically you can also play this Pyrrhus Rise map, because mainly what you want to be searching is the unpronounceable, but the problem is you like the body on board actually. You like the fact that it's level 4, especially for Needle Sealing. It's kind of important. Obviously opens you up to disruption by other hand traps and technically by the monster effects. Some cards can only disrupt monster effects, not spell effects. So if you search the Rise map, if you have the Rise map and search this card, then that can be quite helpful. But this card can also search things like Shaddoll Beast, which can be quite helpful. It can search like Duels. If you already have this one, then you want certain other cards in your hand, so you can get the combo started by discarding them, then sending one of your graveyard and get like a lineup of 3 monsters on board, which can be super nice. We run at least one Angel. You could technically take out one Trinity and run double Angel. Angel is quite nice because it starts your conga line of basically card draw actually, because you mainly get back Shaddoll Beast if you can. If you get Shaddoll Beast back, you always have this draw 2, discard 1. And discards in this deck are really actually not terrible. So this is quite a nice little thing, and you can reset this card with Delaunay's second effect. You can special summon this card off of Dholes effect, so you have quite a lot of ways of getting this card back, and you see you create an endless line, or near endless line of flip monsters that are very, very annoying. One Trinity, you can special summon one base Gardna from your deck. Technically you could swap these two out if you really don't want to be playing base Gardna, especially since you don't play the Link monster, and you don't have the base Gardna payoff that you'd usually want to. You don't really have to play this deck. This can be helpful to do certain things, but if you want to get rid of this, then put in another Angel possibly. Either try and get in Hound, or even play this one that sets other ones and can flip them up and stuff. There's obviously lots of stuff, but you want to kind of have enough Tindangle names. You could technically even play a triple Intruder, but like having options to do other stuff. Shaddoll Beast, a very, very big draw engine. Base Gardner, it's nice. If you control a face position monster, you can special summon it, which isn't terrible. 2300 defense isn't bad. Helps you with Needle Sealing. Yeah, it's okay. It has this like negate effect kind of thing, but that's like not a negate, but this effect where it interacts with like a link monster if your opponent has one. Can help, but usually it doesn't really come up. Dholes, very good cards, can send one spell trap from your deck to your graveyard. Mainly you want to either be sending Protection or Delaunay, but technically you could also send one of the Runick cards to get a higher draw, which can be quite nice. I have done it a few times, but since you only run 2 Dholes, it doesn't come up like ultra much. But what I want to say is, even if you run out of your Tindangle cards, this effect isn't useless yet. Double Intruder, this card at 3 can be played. I feel like at 2 it's still fine because you have multiple ways of getting into the graveyard, and every time you special summon a monster face down, this card sets itself from your graveyard, which is super, super, super important, because at least it's a body, it's a 2200 attack per monster. If you then make it to your next turn, you can go into rank 6s with this, and also it searches you a Tindangle card, which you will run out of eventually. Raigeki, very good because this deck tries to prolong the game a tiny bit, so a one-sided board wipe is never bad, especially because you get this card for free. Runick Fountain, don't think I have to say much to this card, very important. Draws you, and especially in combination with the Runick Tip, because then you have wall cards in your graveyard and you can actually recycle more and then draw into cards that you actually want to be seeing. So this card is very, very key. Nagel's Protection, actually quite nice because it stores you even more because your Tindangle monsters and your main monster zones cannot be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effects, so that's quite nice. Wish it would say or card effects, then would it make it even better with stuff like Torrential Tribute, but it's still fine. Protects you technically against Raigeki. The only problem is mainly your monsters will be face down, and then this card doesn't obviously register them because, well, they're not face up, so they don't know as Tindangle monsters, so they're not protected. A bit annoying, but also this card enables your OTKs, and if you discard it, it's not too bad because you can banish it and then add one from your deck to your hand, so it actually replaces itself, kind of. Runick Tip, we do need to play it 3. You can obviously twist the ratios if you only pull 2 and you don't want to craft another one, or you don't have one to craft and you want to see how the Runick engine actually is. Go for 2 and then like stock up on the other ones. Maybe don't stock up on Destruction. Destruction can be nice, but I feel like I tried it out at multiples because I did get multiples and I didn't feel as good as the other ones. So yeah, find the ratios for yourself budget wise, but if you have it like this, then go for it like that. Usually you don't want to be playing Slumber or a Smiting Storm mainly, but we do play them because we are lacking some of this to make it budget, so we're playing one Slumber. Slumber is actually not too bad in a stally kind of deck, so this works. Also, it banishes at least top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, so at least it does stuff. And we want one Smiting Storm because if you go for the deck out thing, having this at least at 1 in your deck isn't too bad. Plus, if you draw it at the start, you can always use it for the special summon effect, so it's not too bad. And you can always discard it for other stuff, so it's not actually it's not actually in the way of your deck. It actually does stuff for your deck, but just not all that much in comparison to the other one. Flashing Fire, very good card, obviously. Destruction, very good card if your opponent plays like any kind of back row. Freezing Curses it's okay, yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it does what it does. That's what lots of other cards do. I say this while also running Lost Wind, so yes, this card obviously is good. Torrential Tribute, very, very, very important because this keeps you in a game. Even if you sometimes lose some monsters, that's fine. Fun fact, Runick Fangs cannot be destroyed by card effects, so this will survive a Torrential Tribute, which is quite fun from time to time. Talking about Runicks, make sure you actually enter the battle phase. It's not enough in this game to remember, oh, I can't use my battle phase and then just skip to the end of your turn. No, you have to go into the battle phase for this effect to actually register and then actually skip the battle phase. So it's not just like, oh yeah, I'll just automatically skip my next one. No, you actually have to click on battle phase to skip it. Just throwing that out here because I feel like at one point I made that mistake and was a bit upset because I'm a bit stupid. There we go. Needle Sealing, very good in this deck because your field presence is actually there. And if your opponent even has like 2 monsters, then you can still wipe the board, which can be quite nice. Lost Wind resets itself. If you discard it, that's also fine. And yeah, it also the attack half is actually not too bad because then you can get over certain things with stuff like Intruder, which usually you couldn't, and it stays permanently, effects are permanently negated, so this card actually does a lot in the grind game. 2 Delaunay, 3 felt a bit bricky. You don't really want to be drawing 2 at your starting hand, and usually 2 is fine. If you need to resolve 3, then there's a good chance you might be losing the duel anyway, or you're already quite ahead and you just like link spam like crazy. So yeah, you could try out 3, but I felt like 2 or 1 at least is kind of the ratio, the sweet spot for me. 1 Runick Wings and 1 Runick Fangs. I would try and play like 2 or 3 of this if you have it. It's not a bad card, and then you can actually use it as like tribute fodder even for stuff like Intruder or stuff like Dholes, even though Dholes doesn't do much, but this card actually does stuff when it's normal summon, so sometimes this might be handy, or link fodder, you know, Xyz fodder. Lots of stuff that you can do with this. 1 Fortune Tune, because technically you can have double of them and they have 0 attack, so you want to get them off the board, but that's usually what links are for. But if you want to stall even more, Fortune Tune, nice. Evilswarm Nightmare, very good because you run lots of level 4 dark monsters, and this card can be also very annoying to your opponent. Not if they play a link deck, but other than that, can be annoying. Malevolent Sin to get rid of stuff, Asophiel to get rid of stuff, Volcasaurus to get rid of stuff, Shogyaruk to get rid of stuff, obviously, Puzzlemino to get rid of stuff and link stuff off, Geonator Transverser to annoy your opponent and also get rid of some of their stuff. Dispatchparazzi is, or Parazzi actually, is a card that I found hilarious. It is very fun, especially like in this kind of deck, because sometimes you do not know what to do with your monsters, and since you obviously like Nightmare stuff and whatever is better, but this card is a cheap level to link 2 that stalls your opponent even more and kind of forces them to attack into it at one point or get rid of it with card effects, even though it does basically nothing. But it is removal, especially when this card is destroyed by battle. It's not even they have to attack you, so technically you could ram it into it, you can destroy the opponent's monster, and then you gain life points equal to half of that monster's original attack, so you don't actually lose as much life as you would. I mean, it has 100 attack, so if you survive it, you at least get half back, and it's some form of removal, so I like this card, but obviously play good stuff if you have. Decode Talker, same thing, technically bad, but, you know, sometimes it can help you OTK, sometimes it can help you protect and you get it for free. Same for Berserker, sometimes you do 3000 attack to run over something, and Raster Liger, the budget access code talker. Hope you enjoyed the deck profile, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, I hope you have a good day.